Hello, and welcome into another Humankind review video here on the Madishmoosh YouTube channel. Today, what I want to talk about is, in Humankind, there are a lot of decisions that need to be made. There's lots of important things that have to be chosen, and there's timing behind all of that. But nothing seems to be quite as important as choosing when you move up to the next era. And so what I want to talk about today is when to move up. I'll walk you through some of my logic, some of my reasonings for what I think about when I'm moving up. And I don't think this is universal. I think there's a lot of different play styles. I think there's a lot of different ways that people can think about this. So I'll try to present some alternate views as well as I'm walking through it. Well, let's jump into the game, and we'll take a look at some of the things I like to think about when moving up in Humankind. All right, so what I'd like to start by talking about is right at the beginning of the game. And I don't have a specific, start that I'm going to show you or anything like that, but I want to just walk you through, in this particular game, kind of thoughts that I had. In the Neolithic era, there are very limited amounts of fame stars to be gained. So you've got the growth star, you've got the knowledge star, and you've got the hunter star, okay? In this particular game, I actually got all of them. Is that appropriate in every game? Probably not. I have a tendency to move up pretty slowly, and that is because I don't particularly usually care which culture I get in the next age. Now, that changes drastically if you have a particular culture that you are looking to play, and so you'll see that actually come into play later in this game when I did have specific cultures that I wanted to get, and I wanted to make sure I got them. So that's kind of the baseline, is do you know the culture that you want to have, and is it really critical to your game plan to get that culture? Because if it is, that hastens your need to move up. If you've got time, then my personal suggestion and tip is stay in each era as long as you are gaining fame at a pretty regular rate. And the reason I say that is because that fame will never be available to you again. So if you see at any of the other eras, the non-Neolithic, if you look at the ancient era, this is how many fame stars are available. Are there other ways to gain fame? Yes. You could build wonders, you could research technologies first, you could do things to get fame in other ways. But for the basis, fame primarily comes from these stars in each era. These stars in the ancient era are only available in the ancient era. Once you move up, you cannot get those stars anymore. That fame is not available to you anymore. So there is a finite number, there's a finite amount of fame that you can get in a single game of Humankind. And if you move up too quickly, you will always be behind in getting that fame, as opposed to someone who's staying a little bit back of that, staying in each era a little bit longer. Now, do you get a bonus for moving up early? Kind of, but not enough of a bonus, in my opinion, to make it worthwhile. As you move up, the first time when you move up, right? The first time you move up, the stars are worth a little bit more. Once a star has been claimed, that same type of star goes down in value a little bit. But my personal opinion is it doesn't go down in value enough to warrant me moving up before somebody else. That's my personal opinion. I think you're going to get much more fame gain if you sit for just a little bit longer in each era. So let's go back and talk about the Neolithic. The Neolithic era is the one era where I think moving up early is worthwhile for sure. There are some really good, very powerful cultures to take advantage of in the Neolithic era, so you might want to get one of the better ones to get your game started right. Your opening area may also dictate to you, like, wow, I've got water and harbor spots for days, I really need to get the Phoenicians, or man, I'm seeing some great spots to play the Egyptians and get those the pyramids in and stuff like that. Then make sure that you move up quickly. I stayed in this one quite a long time. I don't think it's necessary in the Neolithic. In subsequent eras, however, I do think that it becomes very worthwhile. One other reason to potentially stay in the Nomadic is this growth star. While you're in the Nomadic, unless you move up and take the Bantu, which I did, you can't expand your population based on those food curiosities anymore. So definitely get your population to a good way in the Neolithic before you choose to move up. Now, as we move through each era, here are a few rules of thumb that I like to look at. This top star here, the top type of star, is your affinity star, right? So the Bantu are expansionist, so they're expansionist stars up at the top. these are worth more fame than the rest of them. So tip number 1, always work on finishing your affinity stars, okay? So in this case, attaching territories, right? Gaining territories in the city, okay? So make sure you focus on that. After that, my personal suggestion is, so kind of, if you will, tip number 2, I like to look for 3 additional stars to max out, okay? In this one, I actually didn't, because we started to fall just a little bit behind at the beginning on stars because we moved up so late. So we actually had to go quickly through the ancient to get the culture that we wanted in the next era. The reason I say that is because there may be some eras where you do a quick rush to get somewhere, and then you can slow it down again and try to max out those fame gains. So in the next era, in the classical era, you will see we played the Garamantes. Now, again, we were specifically in this save file playing all of the Cultures of Africa DLCs. So that's why we were doing this. That's why we wanted to get to this point. We're also playing on a slightly easier setting, so we're not on Humankind. We were down, I think, in the middle one for this particular one, just because we wanted to ensure we got all those DLCs, all those DLC cultures. So, but here's a great example of what I'm talking about. Okay, we are agrarian as the Garamantes. We got all of our agrarian stars before we moved up, and then we got all of our science stars, we got all of our expansionist stars, we got all of our builder stars. So that's my general rule of thumb. Get the top one, A. 2, pick 3 other star that you want to max out. 3 other types that you want to get all 3 stars on, right? And then hopefully you pick up a couple of the other ones kind of just along the way, right? So if you're focusing on, gold, or you're focusing on those estate, on that influence, then maybe you pick those up, right? If you're focusing on other things, make sure you grab those. That's kind of my baseline. So let's keep looking at what we did in this game. So you can actually see at the top, 12 of 21. So we moved up pretty quick, okay? Then we got 14 of 21. We moved up pretty quick, but still sat for a little bit to get some extra stars, right? And this one, we go 14 of 21 again, and you can see we kind of did the same thing, right? We got all of our agrarian stars, we got our science stars. This time we got merchant stars, and then we got builder stars. We got 2 aesthete stars, and we didn't actually get any of the stars in the military or the expansionist. So, again, top, and then 3 extra, and you picked up a couple extra along the way. So I feel like that gets you the fame gains that you really need to have, in my opinion, in a decent game. We move along. We spent quite a bit of time in the industrial. At this point in the game, I had a very large fame lead, and I was quite far ahead of the AI in this game. So I was able to spend quite a bit more time here in the industrial with the Ethiopians. They're also a militarist, and so getting these 3 military stars took a little extra time because I had to build up an army and then go find someone to fight. And obviously war, if you're busy trading with people, sets the game back a little bit as far as those trade routes getting broken, you're having to build those back up again, which I talk about in some of my previous YouTube videos, so you can check those out if you'd like. So, in this industrial era, we grabbed our military stars, and then we got our merchant stars, our agrarian stars, and our builder stars. And you'll notice that because we sat here for a while trying to get these militarist stars, we actually picked up quite a few of these other stars as well. Now, typically, my personal opinion is, on the science stars, that's something to really key off of. Now, if you're playing a science affinity, a culture, that will be your top one, and so you'll really be focusing those. But even if you're not playing one, I typically key off of the technology stars. If I haven't moved up, and I'm not playing a science affinity culture, then I am probably thinking about moving up as soon as I hit the scientist stars. And the reason for that is, if we look at our tree in technologies, right, this era line, right, we can't cross that era line unless we move up into that era, and we can't reach these techs unless we cross that line. This is an important thing to consider if you're not playing a science affinity culture. Science affinity cultures, one of their bonuses is they can research past that era mark, okay? So it doesn't quite play for them. However, for anyone else, you will get stuck, and actually you literally burn your research points, okay? Like your science goes away, right? So all this science we're producing per turn, if we hit this line and we've researched all of this, it doesn't stack, it doesn't save, it just gets burned. So if you reach the point where you've researched all the techs and you can't go any further, that's a huge indicator. Definitely move up as quickly as possible, okay? So that's something really big to think about. And usually why my cue for myself to move up is, did I get all 3 of the stars in the research area, in the science area, right? Did I grab these stars, okay? In this particular one, we didn't. We're actually I'm gonna move up because I want to show you kind of what I think about at the start of an era as well. But so we're 2 techs away, right? So if we look at the techs, that's still 6 turns at least. That's 6 turns of I'm not really doing anything else in this era. We're not gaining anything, right? So we probably want to move up anyway. The other big thing to look at, right, is did you put in all of your unique districts, your emblematic districts? We have, if you go through each of my cities, we won't do it, but if you go through each of our cities, what you'll see is we've put in all of our unique districts. So there's really not much left to get in this particular era. There's no more bonus. The other thing that I noticed is, ignore the fame gain. Again, we're playing on kind of a mediocre level of difficulty, but the person who's in second is 1 star away from moving up. I want to make sure that I get the culture that I want, which I believe is the Nigerians. And so now that's my cue, right? Okay, I definitely want to think about moving up. All the things are in place. All of my districts are built and all of that stuff to cue a move up, right? So those are the things that I really like to focus in on when we're moving up. I think the science piece is really key for me as I'm looking at that. And then, like I said, look for that, like, you know, the one, get this one done, and look for 3 others that you're going to complete before you move up. But always keep an eye on this science one, because that is a big one to key off of, particularly if you're not playing a science affinity culture, okay? So in this particular one, we've got some stuff that we want to do. I'm just going to click on a few things just so that we can show a move up. I'm not even really thinking about what I'm doing here, so don't follow any of the advice on what I'm doing here. We're just clicking to get to the move up. Okay. We can pick a science. We're going to pick oil because we're moving up to the Nigerians, and then we are going to go ahead and do our move up. We are looking to play all of the Cultures of Africa DLCs, and so we are going to pick the Nigerians. Also, this abundant lands. Wow. Let's adopt, and we'll see what the move up looks like.
The human mind, creative, imaginative, and ingenious at turning every single human invention to its most violent end. We pray or hope, looking forward to a future which, with luck, will be counted in millennia, not in months. A new future awaits.
The narrator is
Let us
very
see
negative.
if this culture will bring your dreams or your nightmares to fruition.
Look at that. Talking about nightmares? Man, I don't know. I love the final move up. The buildings that change look really cool. You get kind of that modern look. Yeah. All right. So we've moved up into a new era. Right away, you can see that your primary stars that you're going to go after pop up for you, so you can immediately start to focus on that agrarian growth. We actually automatically have a star already. We've been focusing growth in this game quite a bit, and so you'll see that we already got that. So again, we'll start to look at our move up, right? We already have a builder star. We already have an agrarian star from moving up, and so we'll start to progress this. Now, we don't have to move up again, because this is the contemporary era. We've moved up all the way till the end, and so now, rather than moving up, you have to start thinking about, well, what is your end game condition? What is your plan as far as how you're going to end the game? Are you going for a pollution end? Are you going for the Mars, the space race end? Are you going for a complete the tech tree end? Are you going domination? Not something I'd probably suggest, because that's quite tricky, in my opinion, in Humankind, but there's lots of different ways to end the game, and so once you've moved into the final age, it's less about when do I move up, and it's more about how do I go about doing the things that I need to do in order to end the game. Obviously, we have a huge fame lead, and so we just want to end the game as quickly as possible. Hopefully, that was informative for you in helping you decide when you should move up in the game of Humankind. It's definitely one of the most important decisions that you have to think about as you're moving through, I do think that at higher difficulty levels, you have to play it a little bit smarter depending on what your opponents are doing. If you need to move up solely to get to the next military unit that's going to get you a good boost against someone who's going to war against you, that can be important to consider. And if you're playing in a multiplayer game, I think you have to start thinking completely differently because you really have to read and react to the multiplayer players that you're playing with. But as a baseline, I feel like the suggestions and the tips and tricks that I typically use will net you a lot of fame and hopefully result in you winning a lot of games. If you liked the content, please feel free to hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please feel free to subscribe. I post a lot of Civ 6 and Humankind and other 4X types of videos on here, as well as other content from the live stream. If you want to join us live, I do stream over at twitch.tv/maddishmoose. For Humankind specifically, Friday evenings, I play a little bit of Humankind almost every Friday. So if you could join us for that, please feel free. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you for the next video.